Hello everyone, welcome back. We've got more bug news today. This article is out of The Guardian. Singapore has approved 16 insects to eat as food. Here's everything you need to know. This particular article, I've seen at least a dozen different versions of the same article this week in a bunch of different publications, so it's likely, propaganda at best, but definitely AstroTurf because it's a not a very interesting story, but it's another one of "you will eat the bugs" sort of stories that's been circulating the last couple of years. Basically, Singapore has decided that 16 different species, most of them either beetle or moth larvae and orthopteroids, so like grasshoppers, are fit for human consumption, which is not particularly interesting. They've been toying with this idea for a long time. Especially in Southeast Asia, this isn't particularly interesting. But what is interesting is the kind of pushiness of the article. It's all of the same nonsense that you hear all the time about how, this is an ideal protein source and it's so efficient and, everyone should be eating the bugs and you're probably already eating the bugs and you just don't know it. I'm very familiar with these topics. Years ago, this would have been 15 years ago or something, I actually, with the Entomological Society of America, I had to argue that for this point in one of their debate sessions. So I'm very familiar with all of the pros and cons that people throw around with this article. But no one really ever talks about the concerns that I have with this, which is, some of the more common ones that people do talk about, just going over with this, is like shellfish allergy. There's a lot of people out there with shellfish allergies, and they will also have allergies to these insects, and these insects are being, it's being toyed around with that they should just, add insect flour to things and stuff like that. And people will have anaphylactic shock because of this. People with these shellfish allergies. And that's kind of a, normal sort of objection, but there's other things that no one ever talks about. And what the biggest thing from my perspective, my background, if for people who don't know, is primarily in pathology, insect pathology, which is not a large study area within entomology. It used to be, but a lot of those people have since either died or retired. But I spent a lot of time looking at the diseases and parasites of insects. And insects are absolutely riddled with parasites. Parasites that we don't know what their effect is on people because no one's ever looked. Just all of their tissue is absolutely riddled, not just with, bacteria and viruses, but bizarre protists and toxin-producing fungi and all sorts of nematodes that, parasitic worms and all sorts of things are extremely, extremely common in insects. And they're even more common when you are breeding insects in large numbers in a contained space. Pretty much everyone who's ever tried to establish a colony of insects has had to deal with the overwhelming amount of parasites that they have and how quickly these parasites spread in their insect populations. We don't know, the resistance of these parasites to cooking. A lot of these are heavy spore-forming parasites, so we don't know how resistant they're going to be. A lot of these parasites produce toxins that we don't know if they denature in the cooking process or if they are poisonous to humans. A lot of these parasites may be able to infect people. You might have, one of the most common groups of parasites or pathogens in insects are called microsporidia. They cause a disease called microsporidiosis. And these microsporidia, maybe not the same species, I don't know, because a lot of people don't look. Microsporidia do also cause degenerative diseases in humans. They cause specifically infections of the digestive system that cause long-term degeneration, and they are impossible to cure. And just no one's talking about this. It's very concerning that it's just assumed that a lot of these insects are just safe to eat. We don't actually know that. And a lot of these insects that have been deemed safe for human consumption, I am sure they have not looked at their parasite load and things like this. On top of that, like things like this, So one of the things that I quickly found out in all of my work with insects, like if you look at this picture here, insects rot extremely fast, and part of that is if you were to think of them as land shellfish, like when you're dealing with shrimp, like when you are cooking and serving shrimp, you have to devein them, which is actually, it's not a vein, it's their digestive system. They're full of feces. You have to remove it before you even begin cooking them because it's disgusting. And it also taints the shellfish. Everyone knows that, shellfish not correctly handled will make you extremely ill. With these insects, none of this deveining happens. These insects are served whole or ground whole, digestive system and all. All of that feces is just ground up, and it's assumed that it is the bacteria and the parasites and everything else that's in their digestive tract is killed in the cooking process. I wouldn't be 100% convinced of that unless these are cooked for a long time at a very high temperature, which these look like they've just been kind of flash cooked and desiccated. But this is just another, like how this is served here. It says cookies with a side of insects are available in bars in Tokyo. If this were any other meat being served to you, if it was just like a cookie with, a semi-dehydrated shrimp on it that still had its digestive tract in, and you don't know how long that's been sitting on the counter, it clearly doesn't have any sort of desiccant packages like we use with dried meat in the West. So if you buy like beef jerky in the West, it will have desiccant packages in it because you have to control for humidity, and you would never serve it with something like a cookie because baked goods tend to be extremely humid. There's quite a bit of, even though it's dry, there's quite a bit of moisture in baked goods that will then re-moisten the dried meat. Like, it's just asking for rot and for food poisoning. I don't understand. If this was like a strip of, bacon on a cookie that was just left on a counter for who knows how long, I don't know how comfortable people would be in eating that. And it's not even, not even mammalian meat. This is literally like, well, I have a fried clam and I put it on a cookie and then I put that cookie on the counter for, a couple days. Do you want to eat this fried clam that's been sitting on the counter for a couple days? It's absolutely disgusting. And everyone's acting like it's fine. Like, these insects are being treated as though it's not just meat. This is animal. This is an animal product. It should be refrigerated. It's just really gross. Like, oh, I'm just gonna leave a bowl of meat out. Like, here's silkworms. Like, here's just a big thing of cooked silkworms. I'm gonna leave on. This is like some sort of street food. Like, it looks like a street vendor, like where you can buy bulk silkworms. You wouldn't, in the West at least, this would not be tolerated with any other form of animal meat. Like, it's absolutely unsanitary. But going along, with more problems with this. So one of the excuses, or pros that they use in all of these articles is, oh my God, it's such an efficient form of protein, and you can just eat insects, and we'll put insect filler, and you'll have a high protein pasta with insect flour in it, and all of this nonsense. One, in the West, no one's suffering from a lack of protein. Honestly, if you are living in the United States or Europe, you are not like protein deficient. It just doesn't happen in this country. Maybe if you're in the third world, but on top of it, let's say that you don't want to consume beef or pork or chicken. You don't need to go immediately and start cramming your maw full of fried grasshoppers. Like, it's disgusting. Two, what happened to like eating beans and rice? Like, are you just incapable of like, oh, I can't eat black beans. No, give me the maggot milk. Like, no, I need to eat the cockroaches because lentils are disgusting. The entire, 2 billion plus people that live in South Central Asia, the Indian subcontinent, subsist on lentils, and they're not all starving to death. You don't need to start just cramming silkworm pupae into your mouth. Eat some bean soup. Like, I don't understand how, like, especially because it's like, the arguments are frequently, well, this is a meat alternative. The vegetarians and vegans have been eating meat alternatives for decades, without having to, resort to eating bee drones or whatever. It's so weird to me. Just get your can of Goya black beans, have some beans and rice if you don't want to eat the meat. Like, it's not that complicated. No one is demanding insect meal. No one is demanding insect flour. No one is demanding fried maggots. Like, this is such a weird, pushed narrative, specifically by the UN, and they even go into this. Why does the UN want you to eat insects? Because it's crunch time climate-wise. If you are concerned about your dietary impact on climate change, eat some lentils. Like, you don't need to just like immediately go to cramming cockroaches in your mouth. There are better, healthier alternatives. Most people in this country need more fiber in their diet anyway. Like, this is not necessary. It's bordering on the insane. I don't understand why anyone would support this sort of Eat the Boogs campaign, but that's where we find ourselves now. So good luck out there. Figure out your own diet. I would not recommend, however, that you start cramming bugs and other creepy crawlies into your mouth, because it just seems like a great idea. Talk to you guys later.